Well, I think the cap and trade system is really a decent compromise between a flat-out carbon tax and no regulation at all. I guess we have to start from a position where we actually believe that climate change is real, which I do. My opponent does not believe in climate change. So I think we need to start from a position where we are recognizing that that is a factor and it's one that we've got to deal with. One of the things that I think is an interesting idea is an idea that was developed by OWEB, which is the money that goes into that trade system, and actually that's for waterways, to pay into that when effluent is discharged, the money that's paid by those companies goes into a fund to support development of new technology. I think something like that, in combination with a cap and trade system, would get us a long ways. If we could have the money that's flowing out of that system when those carbon credits are being bought and sold, going to development for new scrubbers for factories so that we don't have the amount of pollutants going into the atmosphere, and we're developing new technology to prevent that, I think that would be an even better way to go.
Judy?
Thanks, Mike. I would support a cap and trade system on a trial basis. I've done a lot of reading about this, and my big fear is always that you don't get the result that you think you're going to get out of something along those lines. So I would like to see like a trial, like say a 4 or 5 year period of time, have a sunset with obvious ability to renew it after a particular period of time to see if it's achieving the results that we're hoping that it's going to achieve. And things are moving so rapidly right now. I think there are some other ways that we can incentivize doing the right thing as well. And I think something along the lines of the BETSI, the tax credits that we get for developing some of the renewable energy kind of resources could also come into play here and could be something that we could sort of couple with a cap and trade kind of thing. My fear is always when you're rewarding somebody for doing something good and giving them the ability to trade that off to somebody who isn't doing their best to bring things under control, that you may never get the other person moving to the point and to the place that you want them to go. So.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. I think what we need to do is put the question about climate change aside, just put that aside. The question is, what do we want to do about carbon in the atmosphere? And there are things that we can do. The cap and trade idea, if any of you followed this, the Warner-Lieberman bill was debated in the U.S. Senate earlier this year. It kind of went down pretty hard. It had some very significant impacts. In fact, they estimated it cost our national GDP about 7 to 10%, and on average 600,000 jobs per year lost. But having said that, there's many, many questions around a cap and trade. And I spent a lot of time working on this over the last year and a half, 2 years. Should we have a regional one? Should we have a national one? Should we have a state level one? There's only one state union right now that has a state level cap and trade, and it's Florida. The Western Climate Initiative, or WCI, just last month issued their final recommendations, and I emphasize the word recommendations because the 7 states that are partners under WCI, Oregon's one of them, Washington, California, they each have to adopt those recommendations themselves legislatively. So that means next session, I fully anticipate the governor will introduce a bill to implement the recommendations of the Western Climate Initiative. There's going to be a lot of very excruciating details to work out. What are the allowances? Who gets them? Do we auction them? What do you do with money? What kind of offsets do you allow? It's a very complicated issue, but the question is, if you want to deal with carbon in the atmosphere, then let's try to stay focused and come up with the best way to deal with that problem. Thank you.
Conrad?
Thank you, Mike. I'd be the last to say that I'm an expert on cap and trade, but just speaking to the folks up here, it sounds like it would probably work as a transition, and it certainly is a compromise, but like Martin was saying, I mean, if somebody really is polluting, you have to deal with that polluter. So I would want to work for the time being, to have it reviewed, and maybe make some changes later on. If there's real pollution going on, let's deal with that. That's all I have to say about cap and trade.
Thank you, Mike. Last week, I think it was, Representative Burley and I were briefed by our local co-ops, and our local co-ops talked about how this is going to affect the energy, the cap and trade policy the governor's is proposing, how it's going to affect our electricity and our rates. It's going to go up. It's going to go up tremendously. Because what this system is you're not encouraging people to improve and to eliminate emission problems. You're saying, okay, go buy credit from someone else. That doesn't just, I'm a common sense guy, and that doesn't make sense. No, I'm for cleaning up the environment, but let's clean up the environment. Let's don't establish a system that's going to make a bunch of rich people, and it's going to hurt the industry and you, the consumer, in the state of Oregon. I am against the cap and trade policy that the governor is proposing right now.